You also got to work with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston on some movies. And there's quite a lot of well-known people that you've worked with. What was your experience like getting to work with those people?
Well, each person that I've worked with was, it's a different type of experience. But going from the ones that you mentioned, um, the scene I did with Kevin Hart was in a movie called The Upside, which I don't know if it made the final cut or the director's cut or what it was, but I he was playing the part of a down and out laborer who was looking for work, and I was a foreman looking for people to work, and he's asking me for a job, and I'm kind of looking at him like, you're 5 foot nothing, you can't work here, or something like that. What's interesting about that scene, even though it was a short scene, it took 3 days to film because my scene, with the way when they shoot these films, and you probably already know this, so just for your listening and viewing audience, when are shooting a movie, you try to put scenes together. They're not necessarily, and usually not at all, in chronological order, but you'll put the scenes together because it's the right length. You can only shoot so much per day. So if you have a scene, let's say one that's outside and it's in front of a lemonade stand and it's a half page scene, and then you have another scene later in the movie that's also half of a page that's outside in the same general area, but it's at a newsstand, you might want to put those scenes together so that you can shoot them both in the same day. You don't have to move the camera much and you can take care of everything at once. So my scene was matched up with a scene where Kevin Hart was going to be driving this badass futuristic Ferrari that was not in production yet. It was sort of like a mock-up. When you go to a car show in America, a lot of times they'll show you cars that you can't buy yet. They're just concept vehicles. So this is sort of a concept Ferrari that was going to be like this super special car that Kevin Hart would drive. So my scene would be shot first, and then they were going to do the other scene. So on the second day of filming of the movie, that was the day my scene was supposed to be. And early in the morning, they called me and said, we can't do your scene. And I said, why not? And they said, well, there's a problem with the Ferrari in the scene after yours that we're going to shoot on that day. And it's a special part that they need that no car dealership has. They had to get the part from Italy because nobody knew what this part. It wasn't a production vehicle, and it was going to take a couple days to get the part. So they just couldn't shoot the scene. They were just going to just put the entire day of shooting off and shoot something else that day. So I was like, all right, that's fine. I still got paid. You still get paid, for the day. And then a month later, they were a month into filming. They rescheduled my scene, and wouldn't you know it, the part malfunctioned the day before my scene. They called and said, we have to push it off again. This Ferrari is still malfunctioning, and we need to bring a mechanic from Ferrari from Italy
Sure.
over to the States to fix the car. So I was like, that's fine. That's another day of pay. I'm still, making money, getting paid. So it turns out that we shot this on the last day of production. So I was on hold for 2 months while this movie was being filmed. They had the car fixed, everything was ready. It was the last day of production, the final day of shooting. And early in the morning, I show up on set. It was the day after the NCAA basketball championships in the States, which is always a big deal, Final Four and all that kind of stuff. And I guess Kevin Hart was watching them late and doing whatever, and he was really tired. I'll just say that. He looked exhausted. And I mean, really, even if there wasn't basketball on the night before, you come off a 2-month shoot, you're done. You need to cash in your chips for a while, and you need to relax. And it's funny because in all of my time seeing Kevin Hart on stage or in movies, he's
He's
bouncing
always
off the walls. He's
energetic.
got endless energy. He's loud, he's funny, he's doing all of this stuff. And he just looked like he was at slow motion speed. So I introduced myself, and he was nice, and we're kind of talking, but he was extremely low energy that entire time. So that was a little bit interesting, just seeing him in that dynamic. And then later, because I was in the movie and I was there that day anyway, I got invited to the wrap party because when you're done shooting, they have a little, sayonara, say goodbye to everybody kind of party. So I was invited to the party. I was there, and it was fun. I got to meet Bryan Cranston and hung out and talked with him. What's also funny is my wife is actually in the movie more than me. She
What?
was just doing background work one day, and she got herself into a scene where she got to wear a really nice dress, and she was walking down like a hallway next to Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart. And as they're walking down the hallway, Cranston and Hart are talking to each other in their scene, and she's just kind of walking next to them, but she's visible for like a good 7 or 8 seconds continuously. So I got paid all the money, but she got more screen time out of it. That was fun. We
Wow.
actually went to see the premiere in Toronto at the Toronto International Film Festival, or TIFF, they call it. It had its world premiere there, and we actually went and got to see it on the big screen. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, when you're speaking about Kevin Hart, like when I see him talk in interviews and stuff, he's quite profound, but you can tell that he's a workaholic. Like I think he's even said it himself. Like he's always keeping himself busy, trying to. I was listening to a podcast with him and Mike Tyson, and it's like just the pressure of being on that level and like trying to like keep that success going because you never know when it's gone. Like you can see that guy, he puts in the time. So
Yeah.
and when you obviously when you're on screen, like you have to be bigger than life itself, and like he's able to capture that perfectly. But then when you're on your own, like when you like not on screen and stuff, you're gonna be jaded. Like you can't keep up that impression all the time.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you have to let your real self out. And the thing with Kevin is, people take it for granted that he struggled for a lot of years, and I can remember seeing him in movies where he had small parts. He was in one of the Scary Movies
Yeah.
spoofs. There's movies that he was in and just had very small roles. So yeah, you don't want to lose what you have, but man, just getting it to begin with, you got to tip your cap off to that, and he's a very funny stand-up comedian too. Very in very similar ways. Chappelle also kind of came up the same way. He was in what movie was he in that he had a very small part in? Oh, it was the Eddie Murphy movie where he is the professor. Was it the Nutty
It was a
Professor?
Nutty
I guess that's what it
Professor.
was. He was in the Nutty Professor. He played a stand-up comic who was joking around, and then from that he gets more exposure and more opportunities, and that's really what we're all trying to do. It's very tough to just boom become a big star. I would think it's tougher to maintain that because you weren't able to put any roots down, but Kevin Hart had a chance to put some serious roots down. So hey, more power to him. I think it's great that he's still on top, even after that horrible accident that he was in, car accident, like where you didn't know if he was going to just become somebody different. Like Tracy Morgan was in a terrible car accident, and for a while when you'd see him, you were like, wow, man, he's not the same. He's affected. So I'm very happy that hasn't seemed to have happened to Kevin.